The marble floors gleamed like mirrors beneath the morning sun, and the laughter echoed louder than it should have. In the center of the grand banking hall, where polished shoes and tailored suits moved with confidence, a small figure stood trembling in clothes that barely held together. Dirt streaked her cheeks, her hair clung to her face in uneven strands, and in her shaking hand, she held a worn, folded bank receipt as if it were a treasure map. "I just want to see my balance," she said. The man behind the mahogany counter threw his head back and laughed. It was the kind of laugh that carried power, loud, dismissive, certain. But what happened seconds later would silence the entire room. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Anne's Stories. Your support helps these powerful stories reach hearts that need them most. It was late morning in the heart of the financial district, where glass towers cut into the sky and success was measured in numbers with too many zeros to count. The bank's main hall buzzed with quiet conversations and the tapping of expensive watches against polished desks. Wealth had a scent here: leather briefcases, cologne, fresh paper, confidence. And then there was Soraya. She didn't belong in that world, at least not to the eyes that judged her. Her oversized shirt was torn at the sleeves, stained with what looked like days of dust and rain. Her jeans were frayed at the hem, her sneakers worn thin. She looked no older than 16, though her eyes carried something far older than that, exhaustion mixed with determination. She stepped up to the counter where Marcus Halden stood. Marcus was known across the city. A self-made millionaire investor with a reputation for sharp deals and sharper words. He had built towers and crushed competitors with equal ease. That morning, he was at the bank finalizing a transfer that would add another 7 figures to his empire. His navy suit fit perfectly. His silver cufflinks caught the light. He wasn't a cruel man by reputation, just a practical one. Efficiency mattered to him, appearances mattered, and Soraya disrupted both. When she approached the counter, the assistant manager, Lorna Whitfield, froze. Lorna's perfectly pressed white blouse seemed to stiffen even more as she glanced at the girl. Other clients turned subtly, whispering. A security guard shifted his weight. Soraya didn't look at them. She kept her eyes on the counter and held out her small slip of paper. "I just want to see my balance," she repeated softly. Marcus, who had been reviewing documents nearby, overheard and glanced up. The sight of her, dirty, shaking, asking about a bank balance, struck him as absurd. He assumed it was some misunderstanding, maybe a prank. When Lorna hesitated, Marcus leaned closer to see the account number printed on the receipt. He chuckled. "You have a balance," he said, unable to hide his disbelief. The room felt colder. Soraya swallowed. "Yes, sir." Marcus smiled in that tight way powerful men do when they believe they're in control of the joke. "Let's see it then," he said to Lorna, amusement dancing in his voice. Lorna typed in the account number. Her polished nails clicked against the keyboard. At first, her expression remained neutral, professional. Then her brows pulled together. Her fingers slowed. She blinked once, twice. Marcus was still smiling when he leaned over the counter to look at the screen. And then he stopped laughing. The screen reflected numbers so large they didn't seem real. 8 figures, liquid, verified, active. The color drained from Marcus's face. The whispering in the room quieted as if someone had lowered an invisible volume dial. Lorna stepped back from the computer as though it had burned her. "There must be an error," Marcus muttered. But Soraya didn't look surprised. The account belonged to Soraya Malik. Established 12 years ago, automatic deposits, investments compounding steadily, protected under a trust. Marcus felt something unfamiliar, uncertainty. "How?" he began, but the word died in his throat. Soraya's fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. For a moment, she looked like a child again, fragile, unsure. But when she lifted her chin, there was quiet strength there. "My father opened it," she said. "Before he died." The air shifted. Soraya explained in pieces, her voice soft but steady. Her father had once been a janitor in this very district. He cleaned floors in skyscrapers built by men like Marcus. He worked nights, studied financial books during breaks, learned quietly. When Soraya was 4, he had opened an investment account with every spare dollar he could manage. Over the years, he invested carefully, slowly, wisely. He never bought himself new clothes. Never took vacations. He told Soraya it was for her future. Then, 2 years ago, he was diagnosed with a sudden illness. Medical bills came fast. The house was sold, savings drained. But the trust remained untouched. It was locked until Soraya turned 16. Today was her 16th birthday. She had walked 3 miles from the small shelter she had been staying in since losing their apartment. The morning sun had risen warm and bright, and she had told herself that today would be different. She didn't want pity. She didn't want charity. She just wanted to see her balance. Marcus stared at the screen again. The numbers weren't imaginary. They were real, and they were the result of patience and love he had never witnessed so personally before. He cleared his throat, suddenly aware of the silence around him. "Why haven't you used it?" he asked, his tone no longer mocking. "It wasn't mine until today," Soraya said simply. "And he told me something." Marcus waited. "He said money is a tool, not a trophy. And if I ever used it, I should use it to build something that lasts." Her words landed heavier than the account balance. Marcus felt a sting behind his eyes that surprised him. He had built skyscrapers, yes. But when was the last time he built something that lasted in a human sense? He thought of the corners he had cut. The workers he had never bothered to know. The long hours that had distanced him from his own daughter, who now lived in another country and barely returned his calls. Soraya looked at the screen again. The wealth there could buy comfort, security, stability. But it couldn't buy her father back. "I just needed to see it," she said. "To know he kept his promise." The assistant manager's voice trembled slightly as she confirmed the balance aloud. Gasps rippled through nearby customers. A few who had looked at Soraya with judgment minutes earlier now looked away in shame. Marcus stepped back from the counter. For the first time in a long time, he didn't know what to say. The bank manager hurried over, suddenly attentive, offering private offices and refreshments. But Soraya shook her head. She wasn't here for luxury. She was here for proof. Marcus watched her sign documents to access her trust. Watched her hand steady despite everything she had endured. Something inside him shifted. Not dramatically, not loudly, but undeniably. He approached her carefully. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. Soraya looked up at him. There was no anger in her eyes. Only tired wisdom. "You don't owe me anything," she replied. But he did. That afternoon, after Soraya left the bank, no longer trembling, but walking with purpose, Marcus sat alone in his car for nearly an hour. The city bustled outside his window, but he barely noticed. He thought about the girl who had walked in with holes in her shirt and walked out a millionaire, not because of luck, but because of sacrifice and foresight. He thought about laughter, his own, and how quickly it had turned to humility. Days later, news quietly spread through the district. Soraya Malik had begun funding a community learning center in her father's name. A place where children from shelters could study finance, technology, and entrepreneurship. A place where no one would be judged by their clothes. Marcus made a donation, then another, but he didn't attach his name to it. Instead, he requested a meeting. When he visited the unfinished building that would soon become the Malik Learning Center, he found Soraya standing in sunlight pouring through wide windows. She was still simple in her dress, but no longer hidden. "You're building something that lasts," Marcus said. She nodded. "So are you," she replied. It wasn't forgiveness she offered, it was invitation. Marcus began mentoring students at the center once a week. He listened more than he spoke. He funded scholarships anonymously. He reconnected with his own daughter, inspired by a father he had never met but deeply respected. The day the center opened, the marble floors inside weren't polished like the banks. They were simple, warm, welcoming. Children filled the rooms with laughter, not mocking laughter, but joyful, free. Soraya stood at the entrance, looking up at the sign bearing her father's name. Marcus stood beside her, not as a millionaire above her, but as a man who had learned something priceless. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and comment. Stories like these remind us that kindness can change not just one life, but many. And before we end, I have a special request. Comment the word promise if you believe love and sacrifice always find a way to shine through. Because sometimes, the greatest balance we'll ever see isn't on a screen filled with numbers. It's in the quiet proof that someone believed in us enough to build a future we couldn't yet see. Soraya had walked into that bank wanting to see her balance. What she truly revealed was everyone else's.